feeding your history or you're feeding your destiny, but you can't feed both. You're either looking back, living in regrets, thinking of everything that went wrong, or you're looking ahead, saying, God, I know what was meant for harm, you're turning to my advantage. I know you have beauty for these ashes. I know weeping endures for a night, but joy's coming in the morning. If you're always feeding your history, you're going to be frustrated, guilty, angry, in self-pity. Do yourself a favor. Tell your history, sleep on. You can't go forward if you're always looking backwards. You can't see the new things on the horizon if you're focused on what's behind. Start feeding your destiny. Father, thank you that your plans for me are for good. Thank you that the path of the righteous gets brighter and brighter. Thank you that you hold victory in store for the upright. If you'll get your mind going in the right direction, your life will go in the right direction. I talked to a gentleman last week. He'd gone through a lot of disappointments. His marriage of many years had ended. A very successful career went downhill. Everything fell apart. He was so discouraged, he was going to end his life. He got in his car and was driving to a remote place. He turned the radio on and just so happened to tune into our Sirius XM station. I was talking about not looking back, not reliving the hurts and failures and how God has good things up ahead. He said when he heard that, it was like somebody breathed new life into his spirit. Strongholds in his mind were broken. He turned around, went back home. Today he's back on track, living a life of victory. What happened? He quit feeding his history and he started feeding his destiny. If you feed your history long enough, it will pull you into depression. And the enemy would love to keep you so focused on your hurts and what didn't work out that you're too discouraged to move forward. Don't fall into that trap. You wouldn't be alive unless God had something amazing in front of you. You may be in Gethsemane, a place of discouragement, frustration, but if you'll say sleep on and start thinking some new thoughts, then you're headed for a resurrection. You're headed for a new beginning, a place of restoration. A few years ago, I was flying to an event with some of our staff, and we were on a smaller plane that held a couple dozen people. After it took off, I wanted to open up my tray table so I could write some notes. The table was in the side of the plane right underneath the window. I pulled and pulled, but I couldn't get it open. My friend was sitting across the aisle. His looked exactly the same, and he pulled his straight out. No problem. I went back to mine and I pulled, I yanked, I struggled. I thought I'm going to get this table open if it's the last thing I do. It was stuck. My friend came over. He started pulling and pulling. Another staff member, they pulled and pulled. It wouldn't budge. I sat across the aisle, kind of frustrated. About that time, I looked up, and over the window where we had been pulling, there was a sign with big bold letters. It read, "Not a tray table, emergency exit only." Sometimes what we're frustrated about is God keeping us from real frustration. In my case, God keeping me alive. If God answered all of our prayers, opened every door we asked him to open, brought every person we begged him to bring, we wouldn't reach our destiny. The longer I live, the easier it is for me to say sleep on. I may not understand it, it may not make sense, but I've learned God is smarter than I am. He can see things I cannot see. He knows what he's doing. I wonder if what's frustrating you has an emergency exit only sign on it and you can't see it. You don't understand why God won't answer the prayer, why the dream is taking so long, and why that guy at work you like so much hasn't even noticed you. You've worn your best clothes, your best perfume, given him your best move. He acts like he's dead. Maybe it's because God can see something you can't see. Maybe under his shirt is an emergency exit only sign that's hidden from you. God has your best interests at heart. If he's not giving you what you want, that means he has something better. He loves you too much to let you miss your destiny. couple of years after I took over from my father, the church started to grow and we needed a larger auditorium. We found a 100-acre tract of land right by the other location, a few miles away on the freeway. It seemed perfect. The owner told us the property had been on the market for 20 years. We knew God had saved that property for us. He said we didn't need to sign the contract right then. We could do some preliminary drawings and do some soil samples while the paperwork was getting taken care of. Several months later, we went to close on the property. We had an 8 o'clock in the morning appointment. We showed up at 7:45. The secretary walked out, said, "I'm sorry, the owner sold the property last night." I couldn't believe it. He didn't keep his word. I went home so disappointed. I told Victoria what happened and how there was no more property and how now we were stuck. She looked at me and said, "Joel, this means God has something better. He closed this door for a reason." She started preaching to me one of my own sermons. I didn't want to hear that. She was saying, "Sleep on." I was saying, no, wake up. This is bad. I had to do what I'm asking you to do. I said, "God, I don't understand it. It doesn't seem fair, but God, I trust you. I believe you know what's best." Several months later, we found another piece of property. It seemed better than the first one. We went to close on it. The same thing happened. They sold it out from under us. If you don't pass the test the first time, you get to take it again. This time I said, "God, I'm glad they sold the property. I didn't want it in the first place." God knew I was lying, but it felt good. But 6 months later, a friend called, said, "Joel, the Houston Rockets basketball team is moving out of the Compaq Center. That would be a perfect place for Lakewood." When he said that, something came alive on the inside. I knew that's why God had closed those doors. He had something bigger, better. I never dreamed we could have the Compaq Center. Things fell into place. Here we are today. What am I saying? The things you're tempted to be frustrated about today, if you will stay in faith, one day you'll look back and say like me, "Wow, God, you outdid yourself. I never dreamed I'd meet somebody this great. I never dreamed I'd feel this healthy. I never dreamed you'd take me this far." God's plan for your life is so much bigger than your own. The real question is, what will you do in Gethsemane when it's not working out your way? When your friends aren't there for you? When the contract doesn't go through? When the medical report is not good? Too many people don't see their resurrection because they get bitter in Gethsemane. God, why did they fall asleep? Why did they sell it out from under us? Gethsemane is the real test. We like when everything's going great, but that's not when we grow the most. Gethsemane is where you can be promoted. God is seeing what you're made of. He's seeing if you're ready. If you'll stay in peace, if you'll be still and know that He is God, then He'll take you into your resurrection. The way you know you're ready to be promoted is not that God has removed all your difficulties, but you don't let them frustrate you anymore. You've learned this principle. 2 simple words: sleep on. I read about a lady that was complaining about everything that went wrong that day. She said, "God, why did you let so many bad things happen? My alarm didn't go off and I was late to work. At lunch, they made the wrong sandwich and I had to send it back. Driving home, my cell phone dropped.